I have been so excited about this episode. I'm interviewing Adriana Zak. She went on my podcast 3 years ago after turning her son's symptoms around. From OCD, lining things up, only playing with vegetables, having no language, and not learning anything, to communicating, expressing his feelings, no longer lining things up, no more OCD, basically a completely different child. What happened in those years from 3 years ago until now? That's something that's relevant for you, because I always talk about the fact that we need long-term changes. So how do they happen when someone has been in the program and years go by? What are the changes they're seeing? Is there any sort of regression and plateaus? And if that happens, are they equipped to deal with them like I say they will be? Well, today Adriana is going to share that with you, and she's also going to share some intense things that's happened in her life since the turnaround. In fact, she's sharing how turning autism around also helped her find her life purpose and prepare her for grief and something that happened to her own body that she would not have been able to handle had it not been for autism. Autism is never a mistake, it's always a wake-up call. So let's hear Adriana tell her story. This is a highly requested episode and something that I am incredibly excited about, because my guest today is Adriana Zak. And the reason why this is so special is that Adriana went through the autism turnaround process with me 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been 5 years. So we're going to talk about the changes that she made. And we're also going to talk about where she's at today, because 3 years ago, she was on the podcast talking about how her son changed from playing with vegetables to functioning normally. So we're going to catch up on that. And then it's so interesting to hear about the long-term healing, the long-term changes. So what does life look like after 3 years, after 5 years? So it's a luxury to say welcome to you, Adriana Zak, also because you are actually now teaching moms inside the Autism Turnaround Program, where now your speciality, not only did you change your child, but now your special skill is to help autism moms and moms in general heal the nervous system. So that's rare, because now you've got the experience of an autism mom who's turned her child around. You've got the experience of a trauma healing expert, and you've got the Christian aspect, which is really important because that whole field of healing is so influenced by New Age tools that we don't want to be associated with in our community. So welcome, Adriana. So good to see you.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about, I would like to start with the darkest moment of autism symptoms and your life and chaos back then, and then move to today, 2000, at this point where we're talking 2024, moving towards 25. What does life look like? So for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about Adriana, her child, her life back then, what was going on.
So my name is Adriana, and I'm one of autism mamas. And I've got son Hugo. Hugo is today 10-year-old, and Hugo was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. And I joined Barefoot Autism Warriors already a few years ago. I believe it was 2019. And when I joined, Ninka, I just saw like different sides of autism. So I then realized that there is something I can do, and there is so much I can do indeed. So I'm so grateful for it that you showed me the different side, and also for all this community of the beautiful autism mamas where I can share my ups and downs.
And you're in the UK, and talk to us about the darkest moments when you found us. What was going on with Hugo? What was he doing that was causing you grief? I remember you talking in the first podcast, and of course I'll link to that podcast as well if people want to go back to it. But you talked about when you came and visited friends, he would go to the fridge to do what?
Yeah, so it was well, now I'm laughing about that, but at the time I didn't really want to laugh because we couldn't really visit friends because the moment he would just go inside, he would run to the fridge, open the fridge and just take all the fruit and vegetable they had, and then he would be just lining them up. And vegetable and fruit, they were like he was treating them like friends, I would
Yeah,
say. So
that was his friends.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was, of course, like if we know someone, if they are good friends, that's not a problem. But it is a little bit maybe intimidating for people that someone is just opening their fridge and just taking things. Yeah, so
yeah. So rigidity and lining things up. What else was going on in Adriana's life back in 2019 that was autism mom pain related? And because I speak to moms every day who have fear, stress, anxiety, they fear their future, they fear going places, they can't leave their home, they don't see their child having an independence in the future. And do you remember feeling like that? And what
oh,
was going on in your life?
oh yeah, definitely. Like the worst was this that he would be putting himself in these dangerous situations and he had like no sense of danger at all. So he would just we had to also have him like on a pusher for quite a long time. At the moment we would just release him from his pusher, he would just run, and it doesn't matter if there would be like a busy street. So yeah, so it was really like life-threatening situations. It was
All the
funny.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said pushchair. You had to have him in a pushchair?
Yeah,
Oh,
at
yeah.
some point, like to, I can't remember, but like when he was 3.5, he would be still like on a pusher when maybe the other children wouldn't already. So because it
Yeah.
was kind of like calming him down when he was sitting in one place and he would be strapped.
Yeah. And we have a whole episode about your story, so I don't want to go through the whole story,
Yeah.
but I want you to reflect back from the perspective you have now on what feelings and what thoughts around the future did you have?
Yeah, so I had this sense of that, as I mentioned, that when I met you, I saw different side of autism and I knew that there is something I can do. But at that point, I thought that there's nothing I can do. So I just have to really listen to like all the medical professionals and they will just tell me, oh, we just have to prepare for basically him being never independent
Mhm.
and always being just next to him, helping him with everything.
And how did that affect your mental health and your marriage, your whole life?
Yes, of course, it wasn't easy at all. Also, at the time when I met you, so it was also like a great timing. My son was excluded from school, so he was a bit aggressive in there, and he didn't really fit in there. So yes, so he was excluded. So as you can imagine, that was also very low point I was in because I started a new job and then he was excluded. I didn't know what to do. So all my uh just mindset and like I could not actually be positive at all, like in this moment. So I knew that I had to start from small.
Yeah, so he was at home, excluded from school.
Mm.
And where we left off when you were on the podcast talking about the changes, what had happened to him that gave you peace? And what about school? What about the symptoms? What about lining things up, eloping, the danger, fruit friends? What
Yeah,
was the what was that change? Can you take our listeners through that?
yeah, of course. So well, from what I remember, it was already few years ago, but um He was, because at the time he was also nearly non-verbal. He would be just having like a few words, but they didn't even know like how to use this word. So it would be more like just repeating the same sounds. Yeah, so what we did, the first thing, and we've done like really simple things that you you teach. So we started with nature, so just this contact with nature. We started grounding, and of course it wasn't easy at first. It wasn't like we just started grounding. It's like we started from just in the morning, every morning we would be going out to our garden to just stay barefoot for just 1 minute. Sometimes it was a few
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
That's how we started, but then gradually we increased, and of course today the moment like he goes outside or like he would be in the house, he always just takes his socks off. He loves being barefoot, so we
Yes.
continue
No.
still.
Yeah. And what about his behavior, mood, and schooling and learning? What happened? What changed that has changed your life?
So we've done also a lot of like daily walks, and I mentioned this contact with nature, and I think this has got this really powerful benefit that he would just instantly, when we walking, and we sometimes walking miles, and we still do, he's so calm, and he really likes it. And this movement, just in our case, movement has got like very also big impact
Yeah.
on the improvements, on the like emotional improvements. Um, he's not as anxious anymore, like all these OCD symptoms. They would sometimes maybe come back, but we know already like how to deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's sometimes moms think, okay, that sounds great. I'm going to do some grounding. And then my son will stop having ritualistic behavior, go back to school, stop OCD, start speaking. But it's almost impossible to explain how complicated it is. It's
Yeah.
systems. It's a puzzle. You need to complete and find all the pieces for the healing puzzle for your child individually. And that's why you need to become an expert. And we're going to talk about how trauma can play against that. But
Definitely.
but understanding that this is a wake-up call, this is God's plan for you being revealed. This is you needing to change your life and everything in your life. This is emotional and physical and nervous system healing that needs to be addressed. It's environment that needs to change, food, physical healing, stress healing, self-sabotage healing. And then, of course, the bio-individual nutrition, that is something that a lot of practitioners misunderstand or have missing links and gaps in. And you have become an expert in leading that journey for your child. And I would like to hear, how is he doing in school? So how did he do 3 years ago when
Yeah,
he went from being kicked out and lining things up? What changed? Describe that to us.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
of
let's
course.
move afterwards on to, so what happened after we left you in the podcast
Yeah,
episode
yeah.
3 years ago?
So of course, so he was, as I mentioned, he was practically non-verbal, just a few words. And today he can communicate in full sentences, he can express his feelings, you can have a conversation with him. Maybe he's not like at the same level as child his age is, like with language. However, there is a constant improvement. So we can have a conversation, and he can read, he can write, and he's great in maths. He's got, I would say, like, well, it's like funny thing, like he's got like a slight little obsession, I would call it, like about asking people how old they are,
How old they
uh,
are? Yeah,
how
yeah,
old they are, and then he's calculated himself which year they were born, and he's
yeah.
always right, and he's
That's
like,
great.
so he's just making them like laugh, and they just so impressed because I don't even know how he does it, but you
Yeah.
know, he can calculate. what year they were born. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
mhm.
God is so good.
And yeah. Then the fruit and vegetables as his friends, he doesn't do this anymore. He doesn't line it, anything up. What else? So he, of course,
OCD
yeah,
and aggression. What about the OCD and aggression?
yeah. So OCD and aggression is a lot connected to the anxiety part, and he would sometimes still get like anxious or frustrated, but he already knows how to bring himself back to this parasympathetic division of his nervous system. So he knows how to calm himself down. Even sometimes he would just tell me like, please go, just leave me alone. And he will just work this himself
Wow.
out. Yeah.
You have to share how you taught him to do that, because that's your trauma healing and somatic healing expertise. We want to talk about that. But let's let's go back to the time when we hung up and we recorded the podcast. Adriana goes on with her life. I think people will think it would be great to hear, okay, so what happens after the turnaround when these things have disappeared? What is just continually getting better? What things have you still needed to work on?
Mhm.
How has his development been since 3 years ago? How old is he now? And could you take us back to that and take us through a timeline from 3 years ago until now? So
So
exciting.
I think he 6 when we, or was he 7? He's 10 now. So I think the podcast was around like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say what it was like because we had like quite like instant improvements when
Yeah.
we joined. And I just also wanted to remind everyone that like I got to this point that like we couldn't like get like any more from it. So I was expecting that it will be just improvement after improvement after improvement. And yeah, so it took me a while to just understand that it's really like you go first and your child will follow. So I have to
Yeah.
work on myself first. And I would usually say that like in any situation, there's like a few ways of resolving a situation. But in this case, there's no other way. There's no other way. You have to start
I
from
love it.
yourself. You have
Yes.
to start from yourself, and then that everything will change because children read and sense your state of emotional being and in what state is your nervous system. There's this concept of co-regulation, and our bodies start to heal only when we are around people that bring safety to our body.
That's
So where
good.
they are regulated, yes. So I realized that I have
Wow.
to regulate myself, even though I thought that like I was working on myself. I had to also start once again and go through all the lessons because I thought like maybe why there's no improvements, maybe I just missed something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it always comes back to this point when that is actually you and you have to start from yourself. So it's not just your child and concentrate on your child improvement after improvement, but
Yeah. And what are some of the most strange or weird examples of you seeing some sort of plateau after the turnaround or recovery, and then understanding your role, the complexity of your role in it? What are some examples of that that's been surprising to you? Just a quick little message for you if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, that sounds amazing. I want to understand what's going on with these moms that's in this process. And if you want to understand what's the message behind the symptoms for you, how can you change yourself to become an expert? How can you change yourself so that you understand the language of symptoms by lived experience instead of chasing experts and protocols and diets that actually have no long-term effect. Send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com. You can also go to the website and download one of my free guides, and you can look at the program there. But I prefer email because I want to get to know you before I decide on whether or not we're a right match, a good fit for each other. Because this is not a membership. This is not an online course or an evergreen thing. This is a life-changing event where we work closely together to understand what are your child's unique symptom triggers. How do you understand what's going on every time they happen? And how do you adjust diet, nutrition, and lifestyle accordingly to tailor that to your child specifically? You can only do that by lived experience, by knowing and learning how to do that for yourself. And I would love to teach you, but I also need an email from you to show me that you're really committed to this and dedicated to this. So email me at contact@barefootautismwarriors.com or check out my website, barefootautismwarriors.com. Let's get back to the interview. Do you remember?
So as I mentioned, when I've done this, when I've done your program for the second time, that at the same time I would be doing the phase 5 when we're learning everything about like biomedical and how we can help our children with nutrition and everything. Yeah. So what also happened, like at some point when we had like all these improvements, and then somehow like he got like really anxious.
Yeah.
And and it was the moment when I'm like, oh, am I even doing the correct thing? What I've done there wrong? But then having this phase 5 and just going through all the lessons in there, I could implement what I learned in there and apply to the situation, and to not just give up and just panic what I'm gonna do now, but just remembering that I am this puzzle, like this really important puzzle in his journey, and I will find out the ways of how to help him.
That's so beautiful.
He doesn't have this today, so he's not so anxious. Like, and I know when like bits of this are coming back sometimes, I know what to do and how to help him, because I've learned this going through the program.
And I think it's so interesting, Adriana, and so beautiful the way that God works through this, and that every mom, when completing this process, understands the purpose of autism and why it happened in my life and in your life. And for you, there were some clues around nervous system and around grief and trauma. And those things, if you want to talk about, you've had some grief in your life recently, because maybe we think that when we get our children away from all these symptoms, when we set our children free, then life will just be easy. Where in fact, life just unfolds in ways where we can be at peace and have the tools to deal with life and its grief and its struggles and its problems. So how has that been true for you?
Yeah. So it was, I could just say there's this saying that God would sometimes like use your deepest pain to put you on the path to your greatest calling. So I think this is really what I could say happened in my case. And I learned like so many lessons throughout, like, and one of them is this incredible patience and this trust that sometimes God will take you the long route. Sometimes there's not instant miracles. Sometimes this is the way and there is the reason for it. And I once read this, and it goes more or less like this, that God is taking you the long route instead of giving you a shortcut point, even though, because he, sorry, because he knew that there were battles that you weren't ready to fight. And instead of
love it.
putting you and fight those battles, he took you the long route. So when you get to the promise, it will be set up just for you. So it's
Wow.
like, yeah, so it's a big one. I'm just always trying to have this, but I trust you God attitude. So it's completely fine to say that, like, I'm not now in the place I would like to be, or like I'm not happy with the situation, but I trust you.
Yes,
I
that's
know that this is leading somewhere. So it's like this concept that like nothing is wasted. So even though I'm going through some pain, one day, maybe I don't know this yet, how this is gonna be used, but one day this will be used for good. And I'm trying to apply this in every situation. And especially this year was like a big, big test for me. So yeah, so I'll just share this as well because
yeah, thank you.
yeah. So this year in January, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and of course it was a big shock for me because like why would I have breast cancer? Like if I live healthily, I move a lot, like I look at my nutrition, and yeah, so I wouldn't ever expect this to happen to me. And again, like people around me, they were also like some surprised, and it wasn't also very easy to detect. So I went through a lot of like biopsies and MRI scans because there was one person there who kind of like persevered that like we have to check this and this because it doesn't look good. Yeah, so then it turned out that I've got breast cancer, and I was still, because from the day one I knew they told me that I would have mastectomy, but I was just praying, really praying. I didn't want to, or even have to have this making this decision that like chemotherapy will be what
Yeah,
I would have to go through. So I was praying for this, and in this unlucky situation, I was actually quite lucky in there because I had the opportunity to get this test because my cancer was estrogen positive, and I could take this onco test, it's called, which apparently wasn't actually that wasn't a thing like 10 years ago. So everyone was just put through chemotherapy. And then they would like identify if I would need the if chemotherapy would benefit me or not. And there is the score from 0 to 100, and mine was like really low.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
was,
same.
the situation. I was so grateful that
Yes,
I prayed this year that I did not have to have it. So that was a good thing. But that wasn't really the one thing, that traumatic thing that happened to me this year. So I feel like everything was tested in me, like my faith, my, I don't know, just even my sanity probably was tested
yeah,
um, because what happened after 1 month after my operation, my mom passed away.
yeah.
And
Wonderful.
again, it was something I didn't expect at all because she wasn't very ill. Like we didn't expect that she would pass away. So as you can imagine, I was just in this moment I was just brought to my knees. But I don't know how I still kept this my attitude of like I still trust you, God, that I know that this is No, just kidding. I know that this, even though like I'm in this situation and so much happened, and now my mom passed away, and that was that probably the first time in my life that I really knew that I had to grieve. And I
Mm.
realized, and not avoid, because I realized that probably like all my life I was just avoiding my feelings, everything. And that was the first time I was put in this place when I had to grieve. And I learned so much from grieving. So much. It's like another lesson about
Episode.
grieving. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But talk to us moms who moms with autism children. There's a lot of the autism children, and losing a child is like the child you thought you were going to have, it's
Yeah.
passed away. It's the life you thought you were going to have is dead. The grief, what has been life-giving and what has been the lesson of grief that you've been experiencing as an autism mom, particularly? What have you been, how have you used that as an autism mom who are no longer, you no longer have a child with symptoms?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? I don't know if it
Mhm.
is it too convoluted? I just
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
grief is so important, and we don't allow grief because we're
Mhm.
scared that we're going to drown in it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've just learned about grief, that grief is not, it's not like a bad thing. It's not something that we have to treat, not something that, well, it's not like an illness that we have to cure. It's like a really healthy reaction to what happened, to like that your world changed and it will never be the same.
Yes.
So we just have to grieve and we have to feel it, because many times we just think that with grief we either just like broken and we cannot function, or we just got over it. But
Yes.
nothing in life is so black and white, so we shouldn't really treat grief like that. So it is a process. It is a process, and we just have to, like, as they say, grief has to breathe. So even though it's such a like let go of process, it also needs this nourishment and understanding
Mm.
and just being with it.
That is so beautiful. And that's something to remind moms of, because I remember that myself, that we just want to fix. We want the child to be better, and that's good. We're on a turnaround journey together. But we need to allow grief first and during the process, because we are grieving what was lost. Some of us will be grieving that the years that went from the diagnosis to getting the child turned around, we lose years there for our family relationships. Siblings are suffering. Our child will lose that development steps that they never really will catch up on, so they'll always be a bit behind. So allowing grief instead of feeling like a failure, and also as a foundation for growth and
Yeah,
healing and repair.
yeah, yeah. And many times also us, like as autism mamas, we are like put to shame by other people, maybe if we just say something bad about autism. Um, because we shouldn't. We should just accept it and just love our child as they are. And of course we do. However, we're trying to take them to the best possible outcome, and
Exactly.
just to not be scared to talking about, like, also to talk about this um like obstacles we have in there and what we have to go through, and just like sharing this emotions with other people, what we actually feel.
Yeah.
We can say that we are not happy with the situation we are in now, but we'll try our best to change it.
Oh, yes. So good. Adriana, now he is preteen, and friends and temptations and food and fitting in has it's a thing for our children. How have you coped with that? And tell us about the self-calming exercises that he has learned from you, and then we'll talk about your education as the purpose of becoming a trauma healing expert and helping other moms like that. So take us
Yeah,
through.
so
Hmm?
yes, of course, like him already being 10 and now nearly 11 soon, and he's changing. He's gonna be uh, be the teenager, and he really wants to be a teenager. Um, but yeah, there is of course a worry there, and I know that there is not gonna be probably the easy journey. We'll have to go through all the process and try to keep him away from all the distractions and temptations.
Mhm.
But on this journey with you, with the program I went through also, I already learned this, that to not just panic. And we know that we will find out the solutions. And it may not be easy journey,
Mhm.
because it's not easy at all, but just to still try to remain calm, still try to keep yourself regulated, because they still sense and feel your emotional state.
Does he have friends and
So he's
social?
got friends from school. So what it is, so like comparing maybe to also like other like other moms, like, and their experience. So Hugo, I would say that like he was like autistic from birth. So like there would be a lot of like signs when he was born. We couldn't actually go to the shop because he would be just straight away awake. This lights were
Oh,
something
it
like
was
he
the
couldn't
same for
process
me.
all the sensitivities he had. Yeah, from
Wow.
just like a tiny. So it wasn't like he slipped to autism as when he was around like 1 year, for as that's the maybe journey for other. Like he was, I would say that there were symptoms straight away. So there is a lot of like this neurological and a lot of exercises we have to do, and also work like on this like primitive reflexes exercises, integration. Um, so he still struggles socially. Social is he still struggles with it. There
Yeah.
is a progress, because before he would be completely ignoring people. Now, as you know, like he actually is open, like he's even like too much sometimes. So he's open. He loves people. Um, he sometimes doesn't know yet like how to behave, or he's just a bit too much. But he's getting there,
Yeah.
and yeah. So
And and would
he's
you
got
talk?
friends, but it's not maybe, I don't know how to say, like, yeah, like friends from school. However, he's got even like friends who he would see like from his previous school. But yeah, but we still on this, like turn around, and we still
The,
working on social skills. Yeah, probably we're gonna be working on it for a while, but that's
yes.
absolutely fine to just have this patience with it.
It's good to keep in mind that from the day that you look at your husband and say he no longer has autism symptoms, when you are released from those, the stimming, the screaming, the eloping, the danger, the aggression, lining things up, from that day, count back how many years since birth of natural brain development, social skills, and just, well, physical development, actually, frankly, brain development and everything, have we lost? Those are the
Exactly.
years that we should give them grace of having missed out on, because I think my son is probably that amount of years behind. That's what I look at. I don't look at him as his current age. I deduct those years from what I expect of him. So when he's still a teenager, even though he looks like a young man. And then with that said, still to this day, skills like sarcasm, humor, being able to ask for things, persistence, dealing with rejection, understanding when we in the family emotionally are off and commenting it and being ahead of us in some areas. These things are still developing. So I just want everyone to have hope that it's always a process, and we keep on turning these stones, and we keep working on everything from mitochondria to brain, nervous system, and emotional and the spiritual path that God has laid out for us. So with that said, Adriana, reveal the exercise that he is doing to calm himself down. You said when he gets anxious, he knows how to regulate himself.
So, well, now he just does it like himself. So I don't really know like what exactly he does to regulate himself, but like we do a lot of exercises, and we have like every day, like after school, he's got like some free time, and then we're gonna do the exercises. And some of them they just like to address the anxiety and stress. Some of them they just to like work on this neurological pathways like in his brain to maybe there's a lot of exercises we do that that bilateral movement, or like when you cross the midline of your body. So if you just cross your arms even this way, or if you just touch your arm with your leg, but like cross. So this kind of movements, they work and they help like both hemispheres of the brain to just work together. So left and right, they working together, and then they balancing. Yeah, so a lot of exercises like that. We also do the balance exercises. So even just like standing, we've got like a special like balance board. We've got a few of them. So he's just standing on the board, and I don't know, like I'm just throwing a ball, and he's catching and giving back. So any eye movements. So also brain primers. So we do the brain primers from the from your program, but we also do this calming exercises. So like there's again there's loads of them, but like just a gentle massage, or he can just like lay down on the floor, and then like I would just take, there is this big ball, like a gym ball, I could say, and you just like kind of offer that again like a kind massage. You just roll through the body. It's really calming and regulating. And yeah, so there's loads of exercises. It's just quite hard.
We can share a couple of exercises for people to sign up for. So if you're listening to this podcast, go to the outro, and I'll share at the end of this podcast where you can find and download an example of the exercises that we have used to help our children. Finally, Adriana, one of the purposes for autism and this journey, this amazing journey that you've been through, was to become someone who helps others by teaching them how to heal and regulate their nervous system. And in a new age free version, because that's something that's rare out there at the moment in general. So what is it about what happened? How did you find that passion? Because now you're teaching moms inside the Autism Turnaround program. But how did that happen? And how did you get God included in your journey? And how has that been a piece to your healing puzzle that's uniquely yours?
Yeah. So I think it took me quite a while to discover what I really would like to do. And I think it was a process. So I was just led to it. So there were the events in my life. So like autism, I don't know, breast cancer, like my mom passing, like all this, like got me to this point that I found what I would like to do. So it's not like the easy answer, and also probably from like I always knew that I wanted to help people,
Yeah.
and at the same time, always like this anything like body related, like physical exercise had my interest. So as a child, I was always into sports. How I was playing volleyball for like 5 years. I was playing basketball. I would be running fast. And I think somewhere on the back of my mind, like I have this deep regret that I didn't pursue my sports career because it was something that I really, really loved. And then also on that like whole emotional journey through autism, I realized that there is this emotional charge, and this emotional healing is so important. And I found out that I'm just probably like a master in avoidance and trying always to dissociate from the situation, and then I'm fine because I'm not feeling the real pain and what I should be really feeling. So yeah, so this is how I found out that this emotional piece is so important, not just in this like the emotional piece from the autism, but like anything else where like throughout my life,
Yes.
and how I was avoiding this. So I found this mind body certificate, or mind body coaching certificate, and then I've done also like additional courses like about breathing, about like somatic movement, and nervous system regulation. So all this, I believe that um, I was just led by God by all these events. And as I mentioned, like I don't know, whenever something bad happened, I still had this trust that this is actually leading me somewhere to
Yes.
like the biggest thing I want to accomplish in
Hallelujah.
my life. And like I've got like such a big passion for it. And then you were also so kind that you let me to present all these exercises with and share them with other autism mamas. And it turned out that they also were very, very beneficial for them, and they like them as well, to just yeah help them to come back because
And
the,
that's exactly what God does, because the way that it helps. So I found my purpose through this grueling process of turning autism around over 8 to 18 years with my son. I also had breast cancer, um, many other things that I haven't shared, divorce, leaving New Age. But we find our purpose at the end of this. So this must be your carrot, mom, out there. If you're listening to this and things feel dark right now, it's because you're being shaped for the purpose.
okay.
I could not have done and helped these many, many moms without this. I wouldn't have the strength, I wouldn't have the stamina, I wouldn't have the tools. This is like a university degree you're getting in your life purpose. That's what's happened to Adriana as well. The nervous system, your nervous system as a mom, so this is but this is Adriana's purpose. The nervous system affects every organ through the vagus nerve. And so detoxification, gut health, the way that the immune system works or don't work, our children's ability to connect and bond with others, eye contact, these things like the social skills are linked to the nervous system. And so if your nervous system as a mom is completely dysregulated, the child will pick up on that. And this is scientifically proven that even
Yeah.
their heart rates sync with our heart rates. So if you are not regulated, your child's gut detoxification and immune system will be impaired. This is why I'm so thank you, Lord, for Adriana, for her being able to teach our moms even more about this. That's why it's such a big part in the program. Because without that, you won't be able to heal your child. So I just think that's such a beautiful way of ending this conversation, that's the hope not only does God heal everything, can heal everything, and he's got plenty of time. So when we're rushing, he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
He also has a plan that's greater than we can see at any point in this journey. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing that, Adriana. And anyone who's on my newsletter will be the first to know when Adriana opens up her sessions and groups so that you can work with her. If you're an autism mom, even if the aspect of God and being new age free is important, there's nobody out there who does this without really being influenced by new age, as far as I can see, because many of the teachers in schools are run by people who are deep into new
Yeah.
age thinking and quantum
Yeah.
thinking and energy
Mhm.
medicine.
Yeah.
So thank you, Adriana, for sharing your story, for your strength and your heart and your commitment to God, glorifying him through your work. It's clear that he is blessing your life, and you're surely blessing mine. I get all emotional now, but you really are blessing my life, and
Might be blessing mine as well. So we just
I'm just
share
excited
this.
for our future. So thank you for Hugo as well, and thank you for this interview. In the outro, I'll talk about how people can connect with you as well. So yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much. I'm really appreciating all this opportunity you're giving me, and I'm so grateful. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to get your hands on the nervous system systems that Adriana is now teaching my moms inside the program, this is something we're only sharing inside the program, but you can get access to it by going to barefootautismwarriors.com/podcasts with an S/179 for this episode. You'll get access to her nervous system healing. You can see pictures of her and her life now and read all the details about this podcast. And also, if you want to go through the program, I'm currently, if you're listening to this in real time, onboarding the moms for this season's autism turnaround process. It's a coached curriculum, self-paced, but with a complete pathway for you to go through the steps that she went through and I went through to turn my son's symptoms around as well. And you're going through it in a cohort with a small group of moms that you get to know really well. I get to know you really well so that I can help you when you come up against struggles and obstacles. It's ideal for moms who have a child between 3 and 6 years old, tantrums, screaming, regression, picky eating, sensory issues, and where you are also stressed. You may be dealing with sleep issues. You may be dealing with stress and frustration and overwhelm because you've tried all the things and none of it actually worked. That's what I help moms with. If you want to know more about it, read more about it, go to barefootautismwarriors.com and click on program or send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com. I look at all the emails and I answer them personally, and I like to get to know the people that I am going to work with all of the year throughout the next 12 months. So I hope you'll support the podcast. I hope you'll spread the word. I love to get an email from you with a response to it. I love for you to rate the podcast, give it some stars, and subscribe to the podcast so that it can reach more people. That's what I'm all about, getting this information out to the people that don't know that this can actually be turned around. It's not a life sentence. It's a life purpose. And it's a message for you about something that needs to change. Until next time, take care and stay awake.